In the previous video, we worked with curves and NURBS to create some 3D models starting from 2D shapes. So we saw all the parts concerning the transition from 2D into 3D, and we did some examples here, did some experiments either with graphic design or something like more architecture or industrial design. And we created like pillars, columns, or uh, frames for paintings, a glass. So we make many different examples to see how these tools can be used for many different purposes. So we saw how the curves are basically then turned into profiles or into paths, and then we can do extrusions, sweeps, revolves, and also loft objects. So from the more from the simplest to the more complex. So we saw the distinction also that we have with NURBS and polygons. So NURBS are like more soft models. So they usually are used for things that are really curvy, like cars or vehicles or some industrial design objects. So you can use Rhino 3D for that. Now for architecture, which is like more straight and with straight corners, you can use SketchUp. It's a really user-friendly, easy to use application to create architecture, 2D drawings, 3D models for architecture. You can use Cinema 4D. These are other like alternatives that you have if you wanna create 3D models. Now, if you want to really create really simple 3D models, you can use SketchUp. You also have other alternatives like open source Blender, and you will find all the video courses in the channel. So you can look for them in the channel, or you can write us for assistance. You can write your questions and also suggestions for other users. So we will talk about polygonal modeling, and these are all polygonal modeling tools. And some of these are more hard poly modeling tools, which means that they're going to create straight models, so, not curvy. But you can also do soft poly modeling in 3ds Max and also in Blender and Cinema 4D, which means creating more organic shapes, more organic characters, or like trees or animals, anything that is not perfectly squared, but it's more organic. And that's also introducing another part of the 3D world, which is the 3D sculpting. And in this case, I suggest a couple of software here. One is ZBrush and one is Mudbox. Now, Mudbox is like the smaller version of ZBrush. ZBrush is the most popular and also a little bit more expensive, I guess. But if you want to do sculpting and painting, you can use Mudbox from Autodesk or also ZBrush. And so if you need to do architecture, you want to create plan views or simple things like bookshelves or really simple furniture and everything that it's essentially straight, doesn't have curves and doesn't have curvy parts, you can use hard poly modeling tools like 3ds Max or SketchUp, and again other alternatives. Now in 3ds Max we can do both hard poly modeling and soft poly modeling. We're gonna start with the hard poly modeling because it's simpler, and then we're gonna move on in the next videos also talking about soft poly modeling. So when you do polygonal modeling, you can just start with a simple box. That simple box is going to become anything that you want. So you can give initial indications. So how big the object is going to be. So you can define a length, a width, height. You can manage the number of segments. So you can give like the basic structure of what your model will be, so that you are advanced later, and it will be easier to create the model that you have in mind. So just figure out how many segments you could need there, or you can just start with one and then increase them later. Now I activate the edge faces so that I can see the structure, because everything is based on polygons, and polygons are essentially the structure of your 3D object. So 3D objects are made of faces, which you call polygons, and those will be the foundation of your polygonal modeling. So it's really important, again, to choose how many segments you want to start with, and also how many segments you will need later, so how many polygons. Usually when you have straight corners, when you have hard polygon modeling models, you have few segments, few faces, so everything is straight. But the more you will increase the details, the more you will increase the curviness, the organic shapes, the more you will need faces or polygons. So when you right click, you can go to edit poly or convert everything to editable poly, or you can apply the edit poly modifier in the modifier tab. When you do one of these actions, you're actually switching from the actual object to the editable one. So you lose all the parametric parts of the object, so you cannot, for example, change again the size, the width, the height. You can change the segments, but you can affect the points, the edges, and the faces that are inside, which we can call sub-objects. So vertices, edges, which could be also like called vectors or vertices vectors. Borders, this is when you have an empty part, and so you have a border around that empty face. And then you have polygon and element, which is going to be like the total of the polygons composing a single element. So you can also pick on those different sub-objects by clicking on the icons there, on the green icons in the selection. So you can now start to manipulate all the different parts of your objects. So not the overall objects, but you can start to manipulate. And I'm turning everything into wireframe so that I can see better what I'm doing. So I can see the structure inside. And you can see there, if I click on those 3 points, I can just push them up, and I already have sort of house shape right there. So you can see how you can affect now different parts of the model. So you can move, rotate, and scale not the overall object, but each single element, which could be, again, a vertex or also segments. When you select 2 segments, it's like you are selecting 3 points or 3 vertices. When you select 2 vertices, it's like you are selecting a segment. When you select 4 segments, it's like you're selecting a face or a polygon. So again, you can go there and you can see that it's starting to create some smooth effect. There's some curve. But if you don't want curves, just get rid of the smoothing groups. Smoothing groups are those who will smooth everything up. So usually when you do architecture, you want everything straight, you don't want smoothness. So look for the smoothing groups into the poly tools here, Polygonal Tools in the Modifier tab. So you can see here that you can either select points or vertices or edges in order to change the shape here of your object. So when you select all these edges right here, it's like you're selecting basically faces. So you can just push them and pull them around until you find the position. And so when you select a face, it's basically selecting 4 edges, and I can select all the roof right here that I'm creating, and I can now work with that. So we're gonna see a lot of different